The plane hummed softly as passengers settled into their seats. The man in the business suit sat by the window, eyes heavy with exhaustion, his tie slightly loosened. His name was Daniel Grayson, CEO of a multinational company, a man who was used to commanding rooms and closing deals. But now, he just wanted silence. Weeks of back-to-back meetings, endless reports, and sleepless nights had drained him. When a small voice beside him said, "You look tired, sir," he barely turned his head. A little girl with curly brown hair and bright eyes was peering up at him, holding a stuffed rabbit. Daniel forced a smile. "A little," he admitted. "I've had a long week." The girl nodded seriously, as if she understood the weight of adult exhaustion. "My mom says when people are tired, they forget to smile." "You should smile. It helps your heart." Daniel chuckled quietly. No one had spoken to him that simply in years. The girl's innocence was disarming. He looked at her small hands clutching the toy. "What's your rabbit's name?" he asked. "Mr. Buttons," she said proudly. "He helps me when I'm scared." "Planes are loud." Daniel found himself nodding. "I get that," he said. "I don't like loud things either." She grinned. "You're funny. Grown-ups usually pretend they're not scared." Her words lingered in his mind long after she turned back to her coloring book. He hadn't realized how long he'd been pretending not to be tired, not to be lonely, not to be human. The cabin lights dimmed to a soft golden hue as passengers shuffled into their seats. The faint scent of coffee and recycled air filled the space. Daniel Grayson sank into his window seat, shoulders heavy beneath his tailored suit. His briefcase sat neatly under the seat in front of him. Inside, a mountain of contracts and reports waiting to be reviewed. His assistant had begged him to rest, but rest was a luxury Daniel had forgotten how to take. His reflection in the small oval window stared back at him. Pale, tired eyes, a hint of stubble, and a man who hadn't smiled in weeks. He leaned back, running a hand over his face, replaying the day's board meeting in his head. The sharp words, the pressure to expand, the endless cycle of expectations. The world called him a success story, a self-made CEO, but at this moment, he felt hollow. The plane door closed, and the flight attendant's cheerful voice filled the cabin, announcing takeoff. Daniel barely listened. His mind was already swimming with numbers and deadlines. A soft rustling beside him broke his thoughts. A little girl, no older than 7, was struggling to buckle her seatbelt. Her legs dangled above the floor, and a worn stuffed rabbit was perched in her lap. Her mother sat on the aisle seat, reading a magazine, occasionally glancing at her daughter with a patient smile. Daniel hesitated, then leaned slightly toward her. "Here," he said quietly, helping her clip the buckle into place. "Thank you," she chirped, her voice bright and innocent. Daniel nodded, returning to his window. The plane began to move, and the vibration hummed beneath them. He closed his eyes, trying to drift into some form of rest, but a small voice interrupted. "You look tired, sir." He opened his eyes, startled. The girl was watching him, her head tilted, her big brown eyes full of curiosity rather than fear. Her words weren't mocking. They were simply true, and that truth hit him harder than he expected. "I suppose I am," he murmured with a weary smile. The girl hugged her rabbit tighter. "My teacher says when people are tired, they forget to be happy. Maybe you should take a nap." Daniel chuckled softly, the sound foreign to his own ears. "Maybe I should," he replied. For the first time in a long while, he felt something gentle stir inside him, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. The engines roared, the plane lifted into the night sky, and beside him, the little girl hummed a tune that made the long flight seem a little less lonely. The hours passed slowly as the plane soared above the clouds. The rhythmic hum of the engines and the dim cabin lights created a cocoon of quiet. Most passengers were asleep, wrapped in thin airline blankets, but Daniel remained awake, staring blankly at the seat in front of him. His laptop was open, a spreadsheet glowing on the screen, but he hadn't typed a single word in over an hour. His mind kept circling back to the little girl beside him, whose name he had learned was Lily. She was now coloring in a small book, humming softly to herself. Mr. Buttons, the rabbit, sat propped against her leg. Occasionally, she'd glance at Daniel's screen, then back at her crayons. "That looks boring," she finally said, breaking the silence. Daniel blinked. then smiled faintly. It is, he admitted. Very boring. Lily nodded solemnly, as if agreeing with deep wisdom. My mom says work makes grown-ups grumpy. You look like you need ice cream. Daniel couldn't help but laugh. A quiet, surprised sound that drew a glance from a passing flight attendant. You might be right about that, he said. He looked at her drawing. Bright blue skies, a big yellow sun, a girl holding hands with what looked like her mother. That's beautiful, he said sincerely. Lily's face lit up with pride. It's me and Mom. We're going to see Grandma. She makes the best cookies in the world. She paused, then asked, where are you going? Daniel hesitated. The question was simple, but he didn't have a simple answer. A business meeting, he said automatically, though the words felt heavy. Oh, she said softly, coloring another cloud. That doesn't sound like fun. He watched her for a moment, realizing how much truth sat in her innocent statement. No, he admitted, it's not. The girl looked up again, her brow furrowed in a kind of childish seriousness. Then why do you go? That question hung in the air, more powerful than she could understand. Why did he chase deals and deadlines when they left him feeling emptier each time? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned back, looking out the window at the stars glittering over the vast darkness below. Maybe I forgot what was fun, he said finally. Lily smiled softly. Then you should find it again. Daniel turned toward her, meeting her innocent gaze, and for a brief, fleeting moment, he felt something shift, like a door opening inside him that had been locked for years. The weight in his chest felt a little lighter. He closed his laptop. Maybe I will. When the captain's voice crackled through the speakers announcing their descent, Daniel realized he hadn't checked his emails for nearly 3 hours, something unheard of for him. The soft morning light spilled through the cabin windows, painting Lily's sleeping face in a warm glow. Her head rested gently against her mother's arm, Mr. Buttons tucked safely beneath her chin. Daniel sat quietly, watching her breathe, feeling a strange calm settle over him. For the first time in years, the end of a flight didn't bring relief because of work completed, it brought a quiet ache, as if he were leaving something meaningful behind. As the plane touched down and rolled to a stop, passengers stirred, gathering their things in a rush. The mother gently woke Lily, who blinked sleepily and smiled up at Daniel. We landed, she said softly, rubbing her eyes. We did, Daniel replied, his voice gentle. She yawned and hugged her rabbit tightly. You didn't look tired anymore when you were talking to me, she said. See, smiling helps. Her words hit deeper than she could ever know. Daniel laughed, not the polite, rehearsed laugh of a businessman, but a genuine one, quiet, warm, alive. You're very wise, Lily, he said. She tilted her head thoughtfully. That's what Grandma says. When the seatbelt sign turned off, people began standing, reaching for their luggage. Daniel helped Lily's mother retrieve a pink backpack from the overhead bin. Thank you, she said with a tired but kind smile. She doesn't usually talk this much to strangers. Daniel smiled faintly. I think she reminded me of a few things I forgot, he admitted. The woman smiled knowingly. Children have a way of doing that. As they walked down the aisle, Lily turned back one last time, waving. Don't forget to find fun again, okay? She said cheerfully. And don't forget to smile. Daniel stood in the terminal long after they disappeared into the crowd. Around him, the world buzzed, phones ringing, heels clicking, voices echoing, but for once, he wasn't in a hurry. He pulled out his phone and scrolled past the endless messages from his assistant until he found one contact that had been buried too long, Sophie, his daughter. He hesitated only a second before typing, Hey sweetheart, it's Dad. How about we spend the weekend together? I miss you. As he hit send, a small, genuine smile curved his lips. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this wasn't just another business trip ending, it was the start of something he'd forgotten how to live for.